All right, what's good, everybody? Hopefully, everybody's having a great weekend. Um, Before I talk about the wrestling, about the my thoughts on it, and that I wanted to do a tier list for whole Attitude Era. I wanted to do a Boomer tier list as well, but I haven't been doing a phenomenal job at playing. I think I only played one Boomer shooter this year, and I beaten it, which is really bad. I was supposed to beat like one every 2 weeks or so, and this Sunday I'm gonna be streaming. I'm gonna celebrate my birthday on YouTube. If you want to swing by, and I'm gonna do the usual Mar Paint, um, but I'm gonna change it up a little bit. I think I might probably end up doing a few more stuff. I know I ended up screwing up my save state, but yeah. So for Attitude Era, it started supposedly from Survivor Series 1997 and it ended somewhere around 2002. I don't know when exactly. I think it was in summer or spring of 2002 or October. It was somewhere in October. I don't know the date, but eventually I will mark which year is the best and which is the worst year for the Attitude Era. And once I'm done with the Attitude Era, I'm gonna go more to the ruthless aggressive era, which is the era where I actually got hooked and started watching wrestling. I did probably watch here and there wrestling when it was the Attitude Era, and then the I think the gold. I don't remember seeing the golden era. I think it was during the Attitude Era. I saw a few episodes, like, but I never watched it because I spend most of the time playing video games or going outside and playing with my cousins. I never, I was never hooked on the TV for too long. I was mostly outside most of the time. Back then in the 90s actually. Yeah, in early 2000s. But anyways, so after watching podcasts and watching people talk about things behind the scenes and stuff, watching the storyline, it made me really change a lot of the perspectives and see how things are being transitioned, like the butterfly effect of how one superstar did something and ended up changing everybody. In my perspective, like it was a chain reaction, and I made a video that how Owen Hart and the Hart Foundation, leaving the industry, opened up a flux of wrestlers, mainly American wrestlers, because during the one before the Attitude Era, I forgot what is it, the New Generation or something like that. That generation was slowly getting flooded with Canadian wrestlers, and then a lot of the Hart Foundation family was bringing in a lot of wrestlers. I think at one point there was like 6 or 7 of them, something like that, which it's a good amount of wrestlers. That's like at least 1/6, 1/8 of the locker. No, 1/10 of the locker, 1/12, something like that. So that's actually that's actually not that bad. So considering there was a lot of wrestlers that didn't even appear during the live shows as well. So probably a little bit more than that, 115, 120, but it's still a good percentage. It's like 5, 10%. And that was growing every year. So 1995, 96, I think 96 and 97, that's when the industry was going more leaning towards dominance of Canadians and ruling the WWF. And I think in that way, the Vince McMahon kind of didn't like it. I was hearing that stories that there was a lot of racism and favoritism. How how Vince McMahon is descent from what was it? Scottish, Irish descent. I think a mixture of Scottish. And look at all the guys that have been having red hair. Has been having them up there. Um, Even after, way after the Attitude Era, you can still look at some of the wrestlers who have lineage of that. They have always been on top as well, which is kind of interesting. I mean, as well, one of the things that I noticed is the hygiene and the body texture. The guys that were always mostly in good shape, like Randy Orton, John Cena, Stone Cold Steve Austin, were always on top. Guys like Vader, Mark Henry, who were really phenomenally good athletes that were really strong, and other wrestlers I can't think on top of my head. didn't have that potential. And then I saw the politics, how it goes going on, and how people were and some of the storylines. The only storyline that really like it got me to like this year. Kane and Undertaker are not blood related. All this time I thought they were really brothers. I'm like, what? I even told my brother, he's like, no. Like, man, I didn't want to be a gullible son of a gun, but it's kind of embarrassing to know that I fell for that storyline all these damn years. Like the storyline that I kind of was like, nah, this is all fake. It was actually true. Was the back in 2005, Matt Hardy versus Edge. They had a feud because Lita was in the way, and then behind the lines they actually hated each other. And I don't know if those uh, brawls that were happening that were actually real fights. I need to see that 2005 again. It was probably the best year for the Ruthless Aggressive era, without a shadow of a doubt, because the Ruthless Aggressive starts from 2002 and ends in 2000. Oh man, I think it's 2008 if I'm not mistaken. 2005 without a shadow of a, it can change though. It can change. I might probably say, well, 2004 is better. 2003 is better, but the Attitude Era, a lot of people from the polls and then the websites that I was reading in the comments on YouTube as well, they were all saying that 2000 and 2001 were up there. Not that many people were putting 1998, even though I remember 1998 being such a phenomenal year for everything. It was like late 97, 98. It's probably like the best time for me, that is, to be alive. It was like, I don't know, man. Everything was amazing during that time. Everything, all the cartoon shows, games, everything that was coming out that time, it was perfect for me. But yeah. So for what was I gonna say? The Survivor Series is a transition of what's gonna be the next coming year. So in a year, there's a lot of changes. So from 1997, um, it ended up showing that the Hart family was kind of gonna die in 1998. In a way, it kind of did, even though Owen Hart kind of stuck around, and even Shawn Michaels even made a storyline that he just didn't want to go. I don't want to say what he did, what he said, because it was kind of rude, but yeah. So from 1987, the transition for the Survivor Series, it really marked, and then, honestly, the WrestleMania for 1998 sucked balls, man. Like everybody's thinks that the WrestleManias are usually like the best events in all of the like every year. Honestly, the Survivor Series or SummerSlams are usually the ones that are always on top. But without shadow of a doubt, King of the Ring 1998 was the best. Now I can't say which pay-per-view 1997 is the best because I started watching November the 10th, which is after the Survivor Series. And the thing that I messed up was that I watched all the episodes, and it took me 7 months, exactly 7 months. I think I could have watched it in 3 or 4 months, or probably a little bit less, if I watch it consistently, because I would watch it only on weekdays, no, weekends, sorry, and then I would watch a few episodes, like one episode. Sometimes I would skip a week or two, and I didn't even see it. So it took me a long, but I did manage to finish all of 1998 in less than a year. So my goal is probably to finish all of 1999 in less than a year, and then make a video on it and having my perspective of all the changes. So from all the stuff that I saw, I feel like Vince McMahon got a lot of karma getting up his ass, buying WCW back in 2001. And the reason why I feel like karma hit him really bad in 2001 when he bought WCW was that he didn't put a lot of great wrestlers that should have been on top, like Mick Foley, to name a few. Mick Foley, 1998 King of the Ring. He could have lost his life, man. He could have sued the company. There was a lot of unprofessional things, that a lot of stuff, um, you don't see it anymore. It's like schools now with all the freaking school shootings, like they have all kinds of like fences and stuff. Like there was less, from what I saw. Yes, there's storylines and there's people that talk about storylines, but I feel like there was less practice on it. Nowadays, I think they over practice. They do the events and making sure this is exactly what you're supposed to do. And I think in 1998 and 97, they will talk about the events, but they didn't rehearsal. Because I think that's what exactly how a lot of wrestlers were getting freaking injured back in the late 90s. Stone Cold Steve Austin hurt his neck, and that was the butterfly effect that I was talking about. As soon as he got injured, freaking Owen Hart actually ruined his career short. I think he would have gone for at least another 5 more years at least. So I think Stone Cold retired in 2003. He was always taking pain medication, but yeah, it was kind of a douchebag of Owen Hart that he even put a shirt on that said he broke Stone Cold's neck, like stuff like that. I don't think that was like really storyline. I think that there was egos that stepped out of the storyline, out of the people, because Stone Cold was actually pissed on that, and a lot of people think that everything's fake. Well, maybe now everything's fake, like 95%. Not everything, because there's some stuff. Usually, some people forget some stuff, but I don't think people rehearsal back in the 90s. Like I said, people were getting injured. Some people were taking forever in some of the matches, and we saw it in Survivor in 1997. Freaking Owen Hart, I mean not Owen Hart, Bret Hart, sorry, and Shawn Michaels were hitting each other before even the ring started. Before even the ring, Vince McMahon went out of character, and he even got pissed and told him to get in the ring. Um, and Stuff like that, man. That there wasn't a lot of rehearsal because again, there was just letting people know what's gonna happen, getting backstage or like a day or two, few days. From what I've been hearing, like Stone Cold, he was talking to Owen Hart, how the match is gonna go. Like I said, there was no rehearsal. So I feel like wrestling, WWF in general, was way better because it was more unpredictable. There could have been a lot more things like Mick Foley and King of the Ring. He was not supposed to keep going after he fell on top of after Undertaker, now he fell. Undertaker threw him off the cell. And then Mick Foley's ego was like, hell no, I can't keep going because I guess the son of a gun has a lot of um he can take a lot of punishment. I mean, as a teenager, there was a video of, I don't know where I saw it, where he was throwing himself on the roof and um hitting himself on top of some plywoods and stuff like that, man, dude. I'm surprised he didn't never even kill himself or even destroyed. Like he was meant for this business because I've seen people, which I'm not gonna mention wrestlers, where they drop themselves and the fall is not doesn't look that bad, and they still died. Mick Foley fell on top of a freaking cell, and of course the ego of Vince McMahon's son, what's his name, Shane McMahon, did the same thing much years later, which I want to see that. I did ended up seeing on YouTube, but yeah, I do. Yeah, that I think the Mick Foley one was much more dangerous because he got thrown and he didn't have like the power. It was all about like Undertaker. So without a shadow of a doubt, Undertaker and Mick Foley are probably one of the best wrestlers. The other three, it's more of opinion because back in 1998, WCW was at its prime. And once King of the Ring happened, people started flooding towards WWF because there was a back and forth, people watching, just like when TNA was a thing, back in the late 2000s when WWE was kind of getting bad as well, back in 09, 08. There was people flooding to TNA. But again, TNA never really surpassed WWE. But It kind of was if they played the right cards. If I mean they could have. I'm sorry. With WWE, WWF, sorry, which was named back then. It's still WWE, anyways. They were not number one. WCW was number one until 1999. So from 1996, 97, 98, 99, WCW was on top. Now, when this happened, the King of the Ring, for the first time, WWF was taking big highlights, and then after that, I don't know what happened. SummerSlam after that or before that? It was like SummerSlam and then King of the Ring. Like those events were really, and then Survivor Series of 1998 was actually not that bad of a. I think there was another. I don't remember all of them. Something of like Hell in a Cell, which was about Mankind. No, Mankind. No. Undertaker versus Kane was actually a good match as well. And yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you're saying. Wrestling is fake. What's so good about it? Yeah, the storyline. You get hooked on some of the stuff. Like I said, 95% of the stuff is all staged, but there's that small percentage of things that happen that are not fake. The fact that Owen Hart broke someone's neck on 1987, and then a freaking year later he did the same crap, dude. Like, if you're not tall enough, if you're not big enough, and they even mentioned this in a podcast, how the hell are you gonna do a tombstone with your ass if you're not even big enough to do it? Not even Undertaker, who is like over 6 foot, who's like 6 foot 8, 6 foot 9 without the boots. I know with 6 foot 10, a lot of these wrestlers get 1 or 2 inches in built-in height because of the boots. Anyways, not even Undertaker, who was a feet bigger than Owen, didn't even do the tombstones without the way freaking Owen Hart did. The way Owen Hart did it is if a freaking power lifter who's almost 7 feet tall could have done it like that and would have gotten away. Like Kevin Nash. There's this Australian wrestler that came out later during the Attitude Era. I think in the Ruthless Aggressive era he was there, but I forgot his name. That guy was almost 7 feet tall. That's a good example of another guy as well. And then there's other wrestlers who Big Show didn't wasn't too flexible, so he couldn't even pull off the tombstone that well. Like more of a guys that were more kind of in shape. So there was a lot of conspiracies going on. Maybe the Hart family wanted to destroy the wrestling from within by doing shenanigans like that. There was some stuff that were being thrown out. I honestly believe that and this is coming from me. Nobody I never saw this from nobody. I honestly feel like that Owen Hart falling. I honestly feel like it was an inside job by Vince McMahon because he was pissed that he injured his biggest wrestler in 1997. And even though he was kicking really well in 1998, and then a guy that was getting built, he was gonna be another Ken Shamrock, if not better. He was getting built little by little, just like The Rock was getting built. But sometimes wrestlers take a year or two before sometimes uh, Vince McMahon and the other of his inner circle help him with the storyline. Um, I honestly feel like Dan Henderson. Wait, is it Dan Henderson? The guy would fight in MMA and Pride, and he even said it. He would never get injured in those fights, but he got wrestles in wrestling, which is quote unquote fake. Now think that for a second. That guy has been in the cage with Ken Shamrock, and Ken Shamrock managed to beat him, even though this guy was dominating Ken Shamrock 80-90% of the fight. Go look it up. I think it's on YouTube. The fact that this guy, Owen Hart, injured two people, and I wouldn't be surprised if 1999 would have happened again. Now, I think after this incident in 1998, I think Vince McMahon started to think like, oh shit, man. I think we need to start thinking of something that I won't get any lawsuits. The rehearsals, I think the whole rehearsals and doing things, I think happened after this incident. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but there are signs that there was no rehearsals in the late 90s. Um, I heard that there were rehearsals, and I don't have evidence of it now, but I do hear that there was a lot of rehearsals so that people that are in the industry they can know exactly what they're supposed to do and what to do and what not to do because stunts like that probably get banned. There's some stuff that people would get injured and they're like, you know what, we don't need this. It gets banned. Um, there was so many injuries. I mean, there's always injuries happening. I get it. But the fact that there was so many injuries and there were the injuries that were happening in the 90s, that were bad, man. People snapping, neck injuries, back injuries like crazy. Shawn Michaels was another one. I feel like Undertaker kind of like did it on purpose. It looked very, very. And then again, one of those conspiracy theories. What if Big McMahon and Undertaker had this in secret and they kept it a secret? And to this day, it's a secret. To you know what? Don't say anything, blah blah blah, behind closed doors, and just do something to get a freaking HBK injured. Because the way he freaking threw him on the turnbuckle looked like, looked like, I don't know, man. It looked like very forceful. You need to see that match. I think it happened in January. It was one. I think it was the first pay-per-view of 1988. And when Shawn Michaels got injured, then it paved the way to more competition coming in. Now the thing, why I say that is because Shawn Michaels in real life, this was happening in real life, was having like his own clique group that were calling the shots and they were blackmailing, quote unquote, to Vince McMahon. If we don't do this, we're not gonna do this. And so I think Vince McMahon wasn't too happy of that. That's why I feel like there was an inside job to not only get rid of Shawn Michaels and his inner circle little by little, but also get rid of the Owen Hart family because the Owen Hart family was kind of doing the same thing in WWE in a way towards similar to what Shawn Michaels was doing, but it's a different way, of course. So Triple H got injured that year as well, but it wasn't too bad. And Vince McMahon, I feel like he wanted to push somebody else, so he found he was actually in a very sticky situation in 1988 because he was pushing Stone Cold, but at the same time the storyline was that, well, I'm against Stone Cold because if I actually am against him and I'm a villain and I make sure that he's not a champion, he was making sure that if Stone Cold would ever really one of his doctors or whatever happened that you know what I can't, that was his scapegoat. You know what? Well, I kicked Stone Cold, and now that I think about it, I'm like, holy shit! All these storylines kind of do make sense. Of the mastermind of Vince McMahon, what he was doing. So the only reason of Stone Cold became a villain, but I mean everybody was cheering on him. Not a villain, but the person that was going after the McMahon's family all boiled down to freaking Owen Hart injuring him. So that time, the doctors would say, you know what, you can't participate anymore. You gotta call it quits, or you gotta take a year break, 2 years breaks. He already had the storyline set in foot, Vince McMahon, early in late '97 actually, and that was pretty much what happened all of 1998, where Vince McMahon was against Stone Cold, and I think if you like that storyline, then 1998 was probably the best because I saw a little bit of spoilers and I saw that 2000 and 2001 Stone Cold, he's no longer that villain, but because he was the villain because Vince McMahon and Stone Cold didn't know if he was gonna keep on going. Because he got injured, I think, in summer 1997, and So Vince McMahon was in a very tough situation because one of his biggest wrestlers got injured, and then one of his other biggest wrestlers in 1988, Shawn Michaels, got injured as well. I don't know if it was on purpose or an inside job. And then the freaking Bret Hart left, and then he was already, I think he was what's it called? Man, freaking words can't come to me. He had a you know how you had like a paper and you write a signature that you're 4 years working for this person and you cannot go. That's pretty much what Brett had, and then he left it. So he was in contract. There you go. He got breach of contract in late '98. He was not supposed to go to WCW. So I think Vince McMahon probably filed a big lawsuit, and I think he probably ended up winning a lot of money from that. He probably ended up doing a lawsuit towards WCW. Like the '90s, man, was very. It was law of the jungle, man. But at the same time, everybody was suing people. Companies were suing companies left and right for millions of dollars. Video game companies, shows, celebrities. If you think the lawsuits are getting out of hand right now, the 90s was worse. The only lawsuits that you see now is just shenanigan bullshits like, oh, you had sex with me 5 years ago, you did some bullshit that I didn't like, therefore now I'm gonna file a lawsuit. Yeah, 5 years later, really? I don't know, man. I feel like those things are getting really out of hand because if something doesn't go right and they don't like it, oh, you can file a lawsuit for that. And there's more. I don't want to go into that because there's a lot of political shit going into that. Anyways, going back to 1998, now that Shawn Michaels and Owen Hart were out of the, not Owen, Bret Hart out of the picture, there was more competition. So there was a lot of wrestlers coming in 1998, but the wrestlers that were coming in 1988, Vince McMahon didn't see something like too shining. Like Edge looked a lot of potential, but then Edge ended up doing a lot of stunts that I think he got someone injured on his first match, and then his second or third match he did a somersault and he kind of got injured as well, but he didn't broke anything. And I think that was the last time Edge did that type of somersault because he was wrestling like if he was Rey Mysterio in the early beginnings on his debut, and then he started changing more of a doing less stunts and doing more of a spears, wrestling more like Matt Hardy does, minus the getting on turnbuckles and throwing himself up. So have you ever seen Matt Hardy wrestle minus throwing himself onto turnbuckles? That's pretty much how Edge would wrestle later on because he was getting injured. So Vince McMahon was in a really tough situation again. Like couldn't find the next big wrestler just in case if Stone Cold was to go away. So he ended up, well, he wanted somebody tall, good physique, good looking. So I'm like, you know what? Rocky might be a second generation wrestler. I'm gonna have The Rock, and then that gave The Rock a perfect opportunity because I hear The Rock in 1998 he wanted to actually leave wrestling to pursue a career in MMA because there was a lot of wrestlers that were gaining a good amount of money and wrestling now getting good money on the mixed martial business and yeah, The Rock mentioned that he thought he was not gonna make it, so he was ended up studying Stone Cold Steve Austin. So again, if it wasn't for the injury of freaking Owen Hart, opened so many opportunities to so many wrestlers, and not only to Stone Cold, I mean to The Rock. Sorry, it helped him get that perfect opportunity that he wanted. I think it helped pave the way to many wrestlers getting in, including John Cena. I feel like John Cena wouldn't have been in the wrestling business have freaking Owen Hart didn't injured Stone Cold. Because it was like a domino effect, man. It's so many wrestlers. Because once the Rock got really that opportunity to lift, the Rock later on left the wrestling to pursue a career in in the theaters in Hollywood basically. And Brock Lesnar, I think he left for football. I guess he wanted to try it again, and something didn't work out, so he ended up coming back much later. I think I'm not 100% sure on Brock Lesnar, so I'm not sure on that. I'm sorry. I think he went to the football, but I'm not 100% sure. So, but again, like Stone Cold left, and then The Rock left, and then Brock Lesnar left. That paved like that was another situation where Vince McMahon was like, shit, well, who am I gonna have the next big thing wrestlers? Because Triple H again was a big top wrestlers that were on top, but again, he wasn't being pushed too much in 1998 because there was people that kind of didn't like him. Again, because he was in the inner circle of Shawn Michaels, and there was a lot of people that didn't like Shawn Michaels. They didn't like the inner circle of Shawn Michaels because basically, I see like another freaking reality where Test is basically the Triple H because they even made a Triple H date a storyline with Stephanie McMahon, and then Test also have like a love affair with Stephanie McMahon. So, and then you look at Test, he looks a lot like Triple H back then, with a ponytail, blonde hair, muscular, tannish, tall dude, and Triple H was really good friends with Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, and there was other ones I can't think on top of my head that were part of the. Yeah, they would go out of on they go to the bar and they would drink and then they would find women. You know the typical rocker party, bad boy life. I was hearing that Triple H didn't drink, so he was the driver. But again, there was people that didn't like Triple H. I'm trying to remember the guys that were on Vince McMahon's top, and he kind of was a big fan of Rocky Maivia because he liked his dad, and his dad was a wrestler, and his dad was wrestling when he was wrestling. I'm trying to remember his name, man. Uh, it was one of his two followers of Vince McMahon in 1988. One of them wrestled in 1980 or 79 to 1984 or 85. That was the guy that I'm talking about. I forgot. Chris. No, not Crisco. The other guy. Ah, man, I forgot his name. Anyways, that guy didn't like didn't like Triple H, so he was a big fan of Rocky. And again, you see kind of politics how it goes. If somebody on top or in the inner circle of Vince McMahon likes or favors somebody, they get pushed towards getting that title. Some people really have to work on it and ended up getting it. Like Edge could have been that person that he could have came in 1998. He could have escalated the ladder really quick, but again, there was nobody to actually motivate him. And then Vince McMahon got rid of a lot of Canadians already. So now he was bringing some Canadians like Christian and Edge, and I think who else. So he was kind of wary of actually thinking what kind of because people would say, well, what are you talking about having nominations, ethnicities? Yes, there was a lot of that shit going on in WWF. Like maybe right now, no. Well, Vince McMahon no longer owns the company, but before he retired, maybe that wasn't the case that much anymore. I think it kind of died probably around a little bit before the pandemic or something like that. But I do was hearing a lot of the podcast and rumors of people saying that there was a lot of racism, and going back, there is because Vince McMahon didn't want to have Canadian wrestlers being on top. As well, Vince McMahon didn't want to have certain ethnicities like black people be on top. And I know Rocky's like black, but he's not necessarily black. He's mixed. He's white and black and Samoan and some other kind of ethnicities. He's very mixed individual. So again, like there was a lot of like favoritism of certain races. That Hulk Hogan, good example. If you want to see racism, the 80s was a prime example of racism, of having specific, like they wanted Americans. Only one Americans wanted to be on top. Canadians, everybody that's white, that's not American, comes in second. And yeah, if you don't want to believe me, I mean, just look at the 90s, man. I mean, 80s. Who was always had the championships? Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan. What's their ethnicity? Caucasian, American. Come on, man. Like, it's easy to see all of the shit that I'm talking about. And so yeah, 1988, once Triple H wasn't being pushed, in my opinion, on top because of that guy. He didn't like him. And then he didn't want Shawn Michaels to get back into the inner circle because Shawn Michaels, there was rumors that he was gonna come back and he was gonna actually get the torch where he came back. But Vince McMahon, at the end of the year, he ended up bringing Shawn Michaels and he ended up firing him. And I think what happened was that Shawn Michaels was still in under contract, so he contract ended at the end of 1988. So since the doctors told him, I think this is not, don't quote me. I don't know if this really happened. The doctors told him, well, you can actually go to the wrestling, but you cannot do certain stunts. Well, if you cannot do certain stunts, what am I gonna be useful then? So Vince McMahon, he started, you know what? I'm gonna bring Shawn Michaels back, and he's gonna be the manager, manager or whatever it's called. Um, the guy that was before him was the what's it called? These retro wrestler, the old wrestler. What's it called? The guy that's like a boot camp that had like a military hat. I forgot his name. Dude, I'm sorry. I'm bad with names. Sometimes when I'm doing these videos, I forget names. So they brought Shawn Michaels. You know what? Your contract's gonna end, and I don't want to renew it because I don't want you getting injured. But at the same time, I feel like Vince McMahon didn't want Shawn Michaels because Shawn Michaels and his inner circle were blackmailing freaking Vince McMahon and Kevin Nash, which was one of the inner circles of Shawn Michaels, left to WCW. So by logic, Vince McMahon didn't want to lose them. But at the same time, these people could have easily would have moved to WCW and would have probably found better success. Now, if Shawn Michaels, Triple H would have left instead of Bret Hart, I honestly feel like WCW wouldn't have been in the business because I mean I'm not a big fan of Shawn Michaels. I hate him, but the the Hart families did a lot of the butterfly effects for everything in the business, man. Um, for what happened today, like, and then the karma hit Vince McMahon so hard on in the mid 2000s, and then in 2000, yeah, this year he got karma really bad this year as well. The Carmack years happening every 10 years now, going back 2015 was another downfall on Big Smack Man. And I think that's when wrestling kind of went downhill after that, 2015. Because again, Big Smack Man, if he would have been a success and his family would have been on top, he should have never bought WCW. He should have bought UFC. He would have not only dominated and money and had all the mixed martial arts fighting and had wrestling. He could have actually, you know what? I like how you wrestle. I like that you're a big person. Let's give you a freaking fight or a contract with the UFC. I own this company. I own this other companies. Whenever you feel like you don't feel like competing anymore, you know what? I'll cut you a slack and I'll bring you back to WWE. That would have been the best and most successful thing Vince McMahon would have done. That would have still destroyed WCW. WCW would have been another TNA. Would have been a no competitor, but since Vince McMahon was scared and he didn't want any more competition, his ego got in the way and he ended up buying WCW. He did end up seeing that freaking Undertaker and Undertaker did a lot towards Vince McMahon. I think Undertaker did more than anybody else, but Mick Foley did more or probably just as much as Undertaker 1988 because falling on top of the ring and then getting that other injury that was not part of the line. Like he was supposed to go to the hospital and get fixed after he fell, but no, this guy decided to come back into the ring and then he got injured again after Undertaker ended up shoving him up and then the tooth that he had ended up going through his freaking nose. And the only reason why Vince not Vince Mick Foley had really fragile teeth was because he got into a car accident in the late 80s. He even mentioned it. And once he got into that car accident, he I think he didn't have a seatbelt. He ended up hitting his face, and then his teeth got really weak after that because he hit his teeth hard. But it's kind of strange that he didn't lose a lot of those teeth. So that's why he ended up losing several teeth along the way because of that car accident. And yeah, like instead of giving these wrestlers a good amount of income, because I was seeing that yeah, The Rock is the richest WWE or former WWE wrestler, but the guy that got the most money was Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold. And Stone Cold again, he put himself. I get it. He injured his neck, especially in a very pivotal moment where there was a lot of competition. Everybody wanted to be on top. Once Hulk Hogan left, once the Andre the Giant passed away, and then Kevin Nash left. Like most of the big dudes were kind of away. Most of the guys that were wrestling in the 80s were kind of gone. So everybody was like the Wild West in the 90s. Everybody wanted to get into the competition, and once the Hart families kind of were leaving in the late 90s, that competition even grew. Everybody wanted to be on top. So since all of that competition came in, Vince McMahon was like, you know what? I need to start giving these people more money contracts, like freaking 50,000, 200,000 contracts, a dollar contracts a year. I know you want to fucking make money, but come on, dude. People like Mick Foley were not earning as much money as they could have because freaking Vince McMahon was so fucking greedy, man. Like I searched the net worth of Stone Cold. He's worth $30 million. But how much money did I'm just getting this out of my ass. I'm not sure. But how much money did Stone Cold ended up getting in his WWE career? 10 million, 5 million? Because again, he's getting revenue from all the money as well that's coming in from characters that he comes out in games and uh, and 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 action figures and stuff like that. Because I was hearing that back then there were a lot of the wrestlers weren't getting jack shit. So since there was a lot of lawsuits happening in the late 80s and early 90s, so Vince McMahon now started giving some type of revenue back. I forgot what they're called. But it's not necessarily money, but it can be turned into money. So a lot. That's how some of these wrestlers becoming getting really rich and wealthy, like Stone Cold, because of that. Um, I think Jesse Ventura was the guy that mentioned it, and he ended up filing that lawsuit that paved the way. Now going back, Jesse the Body Ventura was another guy that paid the butterfly effect that changed a lot of things that happened that is having an effect even to this day. So some wrestlers did have a big impact, like Jesse the Body Ventura, Owen Hart, Bret Hart. Um, there's Stone Cold Steve Austin. So not that many wrestlers had a big impact on the industry in the future for people, and some did. Again, freaking Triple H ended up playing his cards right. That's why he ended up being on top. And one last thing before I cut this video, 1998. I felt like Undertaker, no, Kane should have been more of a champion, but I feel like the only reason he wasn't more of a champion was because Vince McMahon was actually worried from all the competition from WCW, and then the storyline with his focus was more on Stone Cold, and then it was having a success. His ratings were getting on top in '98. So this was WWF and this WCW. So they were like this in 1998. Like, I'm not gonna say 1998 was better for WCW. I think like half of 1998 from summer, WCW was on top, and then 99, no, summer of '98 all the way to December, WWF was on top. Because again, SummerSlam and King of the Ring really start paying wave towards WWF. And yeah, man, I'll go along with the way. It's been a very long video. Hopefully, this um, I'll make a tier list of which year is the best, and I'll go along and explain why. But it'll probably be a long ass video when I make the tier list, probably an hour. I'll try to make a an hour or less video. So I probably need to make a timer. Alright guys, take care, have a good one, peace out.